if you're anything like me, then you've probably had certain times in your life where you've been on the endless scroll through social media. My particular social media addiction is Facebook, and never gotten that much into Instagram, Twitter, that sort of thing, but I have spent a lot of my life on Facebook. And so that's why when I was at the library and this title jumped out to me, Why Social Media is Ruining Your Life. Now, it was interesting for me, just before I get into the book a little bit, interesting for me because I actually, over the past couple of years, I've been trying to phase out my social media use. So I've been keeping my phone away from myself during the day, and this year I've started where I am successfully, last year, I'm still thinking it's 2020. In the middle of last year, I started basically getting so that I don't check my phone first thing in the morning. And so this was, very interesting for me because I'm a little bit further along the kind of ditching social media path than even the author is. But so it was quite interesting. But of course, first we'll light up our candles. One, two, one you can't see. It's three. So, this book is talking, so she's actually, I think she's, she's worked in the fashion industry and had work as an influencer, I think, as well. She's run her own business, lots of different things like that. And so she goes through an introduction and then basically breaks down these different parts of our lives that are being negatively impacted by social media. Our identities, body image, health, relationships, motherhood, career, and politics. And so for each of these, she does also highlight the positive impacts that social media have had. So when it comes to identity, we think about people who are in minority groups and being able to connect with other people having very similar experiences is one of the powers of the internet and power of social media. And so for me, I still find that all that taken into account, I don't think it's really a 50-50 as far as social media goes. I think it's more of a 90-10, where I think it's 90% negative, but there are some positives there. And it's really interesting because she does talk a little bit about the history and, how we got onto these things. And I remember getting my Facebook account back in, probably 2006, 2007. And back then it was just kind of, a fun way to interact with other college students. But obviously that's changed through time. And the thing that I notice a lot is that when I'm on social media, I tend to, there's people want to get your attention, and because your attention is currency on the internet, and your data is the currency that the internet is using as well. But one of the ways that it's effective for people to get your attention is to inspire feelings of outrage, which I think actually gets into the politics as well, but she doesn't necessarily talk about that. And I think, social media, I find my life is a lot better. I'm reading a lot more books. The whole reason I have been able to create these sort of videos is because I'm reading more, and a lot of that time is time that I used to spend on social media, where you feel like you're getting to know things, but you don't actually end up knowing that much. You learn so much more from reading a book. Anyway, I could probably talk forever, so we'll just run through. So identity. One of the things that I found really interesting in the identity section was that she talked about how in previous generations, you would, if you were, you might be known around your friend group as the, person who likes to make cakes, and you make gorgeous little cakes. But in the social media generation, it's like you're not just kind of finding your status within this realm of, 10 or 12 people, or, even a group of 100 or 200 people. Your identity, in order to really feel like you're carving out a strong identity, you're competing in some ways against everyone who's ever everyone who exists, and you are comparing yourselves to them. And it's not just that, you're not just comparing yourselves to, them day to day to day. You're comparing yourself to the best version of themselves, because social media allows us to curate what we present to the world, which actually gets into the relationships part. One of the things that I thought was really interesting that she was talking about is that the younger generations who are growing up on social media and are nervous about having to go to a face-to-face interview. And we're all nervous for those sort of things, but really heightened levels of anxiety, high levels of anxiety. And it's because they're not used to having these conversations. They're not used to interacting with their friends that much face to face. Almost everything's on text messages or Snapchat, or I'm too old, I'm going to age myself by trying to say these things, but whatever. On our phones. She did say that with relationships, friendships as well, that people in that younger age bracket aren't dating very much, and they're not really hanging out that much, spending a lot of time out with their friends, as much as the previous generations have. And I guess that made me sad, because I think, those are the good times in life. It's really hanging out with your friends and that sort of thing when you're at that age. Let's talk about your health. As soon as I say that, your health, I immediately am trying to sit up taller, because I do know that, social media promotes that text neck, so turning our neck forwards, which is bad for the posture, and it's bad posture promotes a lower mental health. The more better posture we have, the better we generally will feel about ourselves, and there's all sorts of health benefits to having good posture as well. And so something that really addicts you and draws you into this constant scroll, bringing your head down, but it also makes us less active. It makes us less, and it's really bad for our mental health because it does promote comparing ourselves to others. And even if we feel like consciously we know that, these might be not, this isn't necessarily reality, subconsciously we're comparing ourselves to all the images and all of these stories that we're seeing and thinking in some ways that we're not good enough. Which gets into body image as well. The body image and health go together there. And so there's all sorts of ills that happen. One of the things that I found really interesting when I started going off of social media was that my mental health actually took a big dip. I was making a concerted effort to be off of Facebook more often, and I was feeling a bit depressed afterwards, and I thought, kind of what's going on here? And the connection I made is that because I wasn't getting that constant stream of dopamine hits, that my mood felt lower. And so I guess that's something, if you are somebody who wants to try and get off of social media, just something to be aware of. My love is actually going through this sort of thing right now, that he thinks it's impacting his low mood. Obviously he has mental health issues as well, but going off of social media, it really can decrease the dopamine hits. But over time, I can attest to this because I've been off social media for longer, it does allow you to then more thoroughly enjoy things out here in the real world. So I definitely think it's worth it, but be prepared that you may have a month or two of acclimating to that lack of dopamine hits, and that's just a part of the process. But anyway, career and money. Obviously, the whole point of all of these free sites is to advertise to you. And to get you to spend money. And for a lot of things that you probably don't need, I think about kind of the flex lifestyle, showing off all these extravagant things. And you see people who potentially look like you, like a regular person, not, these really people with really glamorous jobs or that sort of thing. And so maybe it makes you think that you should be having those things as well. And it's definitely contributes to our modern consumer economy. And I don't think, because to me, I think the number one thing in life, happiness can be fleeting, but I think if we can find things that can promote satisfaction in life, I think satisfaction is what we should be aiming for. And a lot of these things are making you want what you don't have, and not necessarily caring that much that you're satisfied when you actually get it. Politics, there have been a lot of things spoken about politics, but one of the big emerging things of research is talking about how we end up in echo chambers. We don't get exposed to different ideas. And the real thing that I've noticed, having different viewpoints, is that pretty much never in a social media conversation does somebody's mind change. If somebody comes from a place of curiosity, they come to ask a question, basically they're asking for their mind to be changed, then yes, it can be, but that is very rare. Whereas I think when you bring differing viewpoints together in a face-to-face interaction, you can definitely change people's minds. and your own mind can be changed at the same time, and you can understand people better. We're just not getting all of those other cues that really contribute to really winning hearts and minds. So, yeah, this book I found quite interesting. She does go through lots of research on these different topics, and and touches on the science behind it. What she gives you all of those data-driven reasons while mixing in her own stories. And while I thought it was interesting at the end, she was talking about a more moderated level of social media. And I guess I've gone a bit more extreme in that I don't feel like I want really any social media in my life. Still interesting, and I think it's probably more accessible to more people to have it written by her, who is a bit more enmeshed in that whole social media lifestyle in that way. So it's definitely worth reading. Lots of interesting information. But I would encourage you, if you do read it, to draw your own conclusions about what you should do. And just because she's still spending a lot of time on social media doesn't mean that you have to, and that it may be best for you to consider making a break. That being said, I'll be full disclosure about what I do. One of the things I'm actually trying right now is to get it so I'm not checking my email until later in the afternoon. It's like email has replaced that, even though I don't get a lot of email, so I'm going in constantly checking my email and not getting that. And the same thing is, I am still on YouTube, obviously, making this. And YouTube, I do find I like YouTube. It's people put a lot of time and effort into making videos. They're putting their thoughts together. It's not the same as interacting in text as well, because you get to see all those visual and voice cues. So I do enjoy that. And so anyway, so I do spend a bit of time checking my comments, more for my other channel than this one, but spend a bit of time checking comments. So that's another thing I'm pushing to later in the day, because it can get my mind into a certain sort of mode. So if I push it to later in the afternoon, I generally find that more beneficial, so that I can stay in that longer attention mode in the beginning of my day. So, why social media is ruining your life? Definitely think it's relevant to 99% of people in our modern lives, and I give it 4 stars. Now, next time, we're looking at Stop Playing Safe. Rethink risk, unlock the power of courage, achieve outstanding success. Margie Worrell. Look forward to seeing